All right, welcome back to the Trade Brigade end of day routine for Friday, August 28th. Pretty gnarly unwind in the market today, especially in the afternoon after the Kevin Warsh speech. You can see in the upper wick we've rejected the top end of the previous bull flag, but notably at the lows of today's session, we are technically holding on to the bottom end of the previous bull flag over here. I would just certainly call that critical support at 767.50. The market may be able to maintain a constructive look here if we can hold that early on in the coming weeks worth of trade. Of course, the 8 EMA is in there. The daily 20 SMA is in that neighborhood as well. 767.50 will be the key level, but we'll talk much more about that over on the main channel. For now, let's get into some level and chart updates for our Spiders cash. We want the 7 DTE expected move. We're looking at roughly a $9.21, let's call it $9.22 expected move on top of an underneath 769.35, giving us a bottom right-hand point of 760.13 and a top left-hand point of 778.57 is going to be the upper bound of that expected move. We'll bring this out to the 6th of September and the 30th of August, make this a brighter gray, and then we'll move back into our daily chart and continue to update our levels as we see fit. Let's go on in over here and let's just update the upper bound in blue, cyan. This is 778.57 we just said, 778.57. We'll bring this to the 30th, and we'll bring this to the 30th as well. And then we'll bring the lower bound forward also. That's going to be at 760.13. And of course, up to the 30th, up to the 30th. And we move forward by making this gray. And then we'll take a look at the hourly chart. Just kind of see if there are any nuances to the levels that we can update on the hourly. There we go, dimming that back a little bit. All right, let's go to the hourly chart and see what we can see. Doesn't really look like we need a ton of level updates. This, of course, is going to be your key structure, 767.50. This level probably gets bumped slightly higher to today's opening print around 771.75. Just bump that up by about 50 cents. And honestly, this is a picture-perfect interaction here. This remains key. I would not make any other adjustments to our S&P 500 daily chart, the hourly chart here for a levels perspective. The only other thing we might check in on is just what's going on with our anchored VWAP intraday. Should probably anchor one to the lowest low of the move. I would anchor it to this. It's already there, but it's probably worth brightening up just a little bit. It's the lowest low of the move, so let's go ahead and make that, I don't know. Just make it pink so it stands off just a little bit against the other white anchored VWAPs. That works for me. And it's not ready yet because, it's not going to tell us anything, but an anchored VWAP should definitely go to the Jackson Hole session. That's today, of course, Friday. We'll do that probably for the Wednesday update video next week. But let's just save this study set, and then we will move back into our daily charts, and we will continue along with the Qs. NASDAQ 100 side of the market. Much uglier chart over here. A lot of visual noise on this, so I'm hoping we can clean it up quite a bit. This is still a junk drawer range. I think it's notable we looked into the gap overhead and failed. Again, we'll talk much more about this in the analysis on the main channel, but kind of just very choppy here and certainly a threat for a lower high after failing to accelerate into that unfilled gap. Anyways, starting with our weekly expected move on the NASDAQ side. Looking at those 7-day options still, about $12, and these like little fractions of a penny, we'll just round that up to $12.51. Let's go on in and call this on the bottom side. That is going to be what's on top of 716.43, so 703.92. And then on the top side, we're going to go with 728, right? And then we're going to go 94. Good. And this goes out to September. And this goes out to the end of August. We'll make this the correct color. We'll keep moving forward. We'll rock right through it on today's session. There we go. And just jumping in to make our cyan levels appropriate. The bottom end, once again, is at 703.92. And we'll bump this forward to the 30th. And we'll bump this forward to the 30th. And you guys can just see, again, I love the feedback that we're getting in the comments section in the past couple of videos when we've done this. Everybody's like, wow, I didn't realize, it's a very manual process. It is. That way you're intimately aware and familiar with all the levels you have on your chart. If you don't know what the levels are, why they're there, what they represent, you're kind of just, it might be an okay roadmap, but if you don't have faith in it, then what are we doing, right? Let's bring this thing back in terms of opacity to a 50% level And there we have it. That is the weekly expected move. Let's go to the hourly chart and let's just sort of start to clean up some of this visual noise. I have faith we should be able to clean up some of it. I do want to leave this on as a key level because it represents a failure. I think what I'll do here is make that white, and then we'll continue to track the gap as such at 724 flat, make that yellow quickly. That's the remainder of the gap. This is still key. There's a gap underneath us in here. This is like a little bit too much noise down here on the lows for my liking. So what's the key spot? It's the follow through day low, really. It's this low right over here. I mean, yes, if you extend this level off to the left and do something that looks like that, it's still in the neighborhood, but just too much visual noise. We're going to have a problem. If we're underneath the 50 SMA, I don't want to be overwhelmed with like, oh, maybe that's support or maybe that's support. If we're under the 50 SMA, it's bearish. So, I'll leave this one on as the top side of this little range, but this can go bye-bye. We'll remove a little bit of that visual noise there. This gap still does exist underneath us. And of course, we'll talk much more about the pathing over on the main channel video. I think that's good for now in terms of level updates, and we keep cruising forward into small caps. Let's go ahead and readjust our expected move. And 7-day option still yes. Looking at about a $5 expected move. That's a 0.004. So we'll round down on that. We'll call it $5 even. That'll make our job easy on top of 295.75. So just a nice easy one here. Top side to 300, and 75 cents. And sorry, I just totally put that in the wrong box. Put that here, and then on the downside it would just be 290.75. Perfect. We'll bring this out to the September timeframe. And we'll bring this to the end of August. Update the color. It's really a shade tint. And then we'll go forward into this. We'll update this to gray or darker gray, the shade. Let's bring this out to 50%. And we'll take these levels and update these as well. It's going to be at $300.75. We go to the 30th, $300.35. The 30th, great. Updated, and the bottom one is at 290.75, and the 30th, great, and we keep rocking forward. All right, pretty gnarly close over here. Obviously, a breakdown from the balance range, a departure of range on Jackson Hole catalyst. Market seems to be a little worried about inflation and rate hikes. Honestly, it's as bad as it is in terms of downside, right? Like, oh, I guess the market's bearish. I think Kevin Warsh did and said what he needed to say to save some credibility there for the Fed. So we'll see where we go from there. But to the hourly chart, to just update some levels, of course, a little less interested in, well, this probably goes like this. This is what I would do. And this is what I will do. We'll dim that back to a gray. This will get updated into a white like such. And this just goes goodbye. Oops, not the full drawing set, just that right there. That's it. That is the chart update for the Russell small caps. Just quickly go down here and probably brighten up one or two additional levels to the downside. That way we've got something through the lower bound of the weekly expected move for next week. Doing something that looks like that. Usually I go 2 levels beyond the expected move. So that's kind of 1 and 2 right there. If we need more, we of course will update them beyond that, but that is what we've got so far on smalls. All right, let's save the core list of companies for after we go through our sectors. Let's see what the sectors have for us, starting with DRAM. Any level updates over here? I mean, you're really just building out a balance range. It's less of a trending market over here. I thought it was kind of notable, actually, that MU closes up about 1.5% from open when the market's kind of experiencing, I wouldn't call it a bloodbath, but certainly a pullback day, right? Let's go on over to this hourly chart, though, and try to make heads and tails of it. Honestly, another chart where I feel like we don't have to update all that much. This looks pretty darn straightforward. I think we leave that be. I think this maybe gets a little bit of an update to the bottom side, something like this. You know, again, how much visual noise do you want on your chart, right? Could we do something that looks like this and make sure we have the gap properly annotated, turn this one into a white line like that? You know, could we do this and then probably take this and do that? Probably. Right, and that's what we'll do for today's session. All right, so this is the overall range. This is a subdivision of the range. And if we want to subdivide, that's actually the accurate subdivision at 55. And we just got to maintain this range basically back to the daily chart. This isn't too bad to look at in here. Let's move forward to the IGV. Really strong stuff on software, of course. We know that software had a standout end of the week post earnings report from CRM, Okta, as well as CrowdStrike. Really strong stuff in the cybersecurity space. On the heels of OpenAI's report that, hey, we did a technical deep dive on how these models broke out of their sandboxes, and we probably need more cybersecurity. So up, and away over here. Let's check in on the hourly and see what we're working with in terms of this level. Yeah, we could just remove this. It's just this 2-day high now that matters most. We'll call that at 110.40. And this low, I mean, this is probably bye-bye over here. This low is critical, of course. That's just the bull flag low. Looks something like that. Pretty straightforward there. This probably deserves a little bit of an upgrade to something that looks like that. And we just go out to the daily and say, okay, what do we have above us? I mean, that looks to be pretty appropriate, top end of that range. Let's go even further out than just a year. I want to make sure I know where the all-time high is. I believe that's it. Yeah, that should be it. Let's just double check it was not during the sickness push at all. Yeah, we're well above those highs. Okay, just double checking that I'm not missing something. So usually what I like to do is actually label this ATH. That way I know we're in the right neighborhood, we're near it. And if we wanted to subdivide this range back over here, that is within a year, so we should be able to look at a 360-day hourly chart and get a little bit more detail out of this. So that was the turnaround, right? Right there at 114. We'll just go ahead and get 114 on the screens, just like that. I'm going to leave it firm, actually, as a solid line, because that was a pretty meaningful, right? That kicked this whole thing off, right? The SaaSpocalypse, as Mark Benioff said. So that's good. These highs in here, I'm just going to put the line on there and see where we're trading at currently, because we're through it. Oh, yeah, we're right at it. Great. Okay, so remove, and this high just represents it already. So no problems there. So levels updated on the IGV. If you missed some of that, it's 110.40, 111.75, 114, 118 all-time high. Let's go over to this XLE and see what's going on from an XLE energy perspective. Any level updates? No. Let's go to the daily chart. Honestly, I hate to say it because energy is inflationary, but it looks higher, right, over these little highs. More analysis on the main channel. XLK, probably can remove this since we've just traded violently through it. Can we? Yes, no, maybe so. Yeah, I'd say that's a little bit less meaningful now. Yeah, less meaningful now. I would probably just let this thing be in terms of being Swiss cheese, gap above, gap below. See if the moving average cluster wants to act supportive. Back to the daily chart. Yeah, I mean, in an effort to simplify and reduce visual noise and make cleaner trading decisions, great. You look and fail into the gap. Don't want to be overwhelmed by additional levels in there. Close the gap above and fail. Don't need to be overwhelmed by additional levels in here. Is it support? Is it not? Is it high or low? Just back in range, right? Moving forward to this XLV, nice gap close. We probably just make this a range low, I would imagine. Little tricky, given this little lower high in here. Little bit tricky. I would probably opt for, yeah, let's just remove this, split the difference across those like that. Let's make this an even number. You guys know rule number 2 up here in the office, round numbers only. There we go. And this, honestly, instead of being a yellow gap, we just remove that and say, okay, can we hold up over these prior highs? Because the gap is mostly closed. I wouldn't focus too much on the gap anymore. Once again, an effort to simplify charts is a good thing. Something just like that. Simplify the chart, make your trading decision easier. So a reclaim of the bottom end of the range, bullish. If we just drift and can hold a higher low, great, bullish again. You know, something like that is a much easier watch on that XLV. XLF, fake out bar. After looking beautiful in here, there we go. After looking beautiful, nope, and then yep. So consolidation, really no level updates, I would imagine, on this hourly. Yeah, we look fine there. XLI, let's just keep it on the hourly. All-time high is fine. We're clearly breaking down. Appropriate level today is low. Daily chart, we have enough below us. Let's maybe brighten up one more level to the downside. What exists underneath us? Anything down here? Wow, daily 200 SMA. Let's brighten this up to a gray. And let's just see, is that good enough? That's plenty. But look at the violence back there. Kind of deserving, right? Back into this range, deserving to just have that one singular level. If you really wanted to subdivide, you could say something like 172.25, but I'll keep it simple for the sake of the chart. XLP, it really trying to make a decent effort at reduction here. Simplification is better, right? Noisy chart, really noisy chart, failing to break out a couple of times in here. Gap down, I don't want to put the gap on there and add visual noise. This is just a choppy chart. It's also one of the lighter weight defensive sectors. I don't want to overanalyze it. Moving forward. XLY, fine for now. I think we let that be inside this little range. Levels seem accurate and up to date. No need to overanalyze that. Good. Next, XLB, lightest weight sector there is. Yep, no need to overanalyze or update numbers on this screen. Let's go to the XLC. Communications, come on, baby, let's go. Let's get out of this little range in here and do something. You know, make this market a little more friendly. And we could even start saying like double bottom neckline break, ascending triangle, whatever you want to call it, right? So this is fine. I don't want to subdivide the range, but you probably could. You could get away with, if you really wanted to, you could get away with some subdivision. I don't know, 111.50 if you were so hell-bent, on putting a line on the screen. I'll just do it because why not? Right, something that looks like that, midpoint of the balance. I know I just said an effort to reduce visual noise, but that's the only other line that maybe makes sense on that XLC. Mag 7 ETF, really nice push. I mean, robotic bids underneath Amazon today, Microsoft, Google, obviously unwinding a little bit, but and NVIDIA pulling, but for those hyperscalers, big robotic bids. This looks good. You've got yourself an equal high. If it pulls back, all you need is a higher low at this point. So let's just double check some levels in here and see what we're working with. This is great. Look at the pullback right into the number. Perfect. Perfect there. This chart does not need, believe it or not, needs no updates. No updates on this chart. If anything, we just say, okay, this can go back to dim. We don't need that bright distracting us. That's fine. This, yeah, let's just go, you know, our last line in the sand for now is going to be that daily 200 SMA right around in here, right? So that's all set. Let's move forward to real estate, and we got the all-time high mapped. That's good. Let's just double check a little further left. And there's probably something to put on the screen. No, that's the high right here. Fine. Moving forward, real estate, another choppy chart. We don't want to overanalyze the range. Fine, we'll let that be. Utilities breaking on down. Not the best look considering what this means for rates, right? But lower, we've got some levels mapped out here. Obviously, if this is inverted head and shoulders, your shoulders are there, your head's there. That makes sense. You know, I'm really not expecting utilities to make a much deeper move than that. So all set on the bottom side, all set on the top side. We'll leave that be. SMH is the last, and then we'll hit the core list. And then we'll hit the best part of the video, which of course is the scanning. We've got some updating to do here, that's for sure. Let's go to the hourly chart just so we could see it with the most clarity. This gap goes away, of course. No need for that anymore. This is still accurate at 555.75s. You probably have a little flush point in here. I would make that dim. And if we give way underneath 551s, 550 will be a psych number. But underneath that, we probably want to know about this low, huh? It's going to be at roughly 542. Back to the daily. Yeah, that works for me. A little simplification of the chart there. This is a range. This is a lower high. Close the gap, remove the gap, and a little heads up flush under 551. So that's the SMH. Now let's get into the core list of companies. Let's update these charts as we see fit, starting with NVIDIA. Really gnarly pullback today, and the worst part is that it didn't even hold the daily 20 and 8 EMA on the retest there. Intraday, there was a nice little, kind of counter trend rebound off of it. Here's a 5-minute chart. See this little move right here? It's like you come slamming into it. Great, there's your little rebound that starts, but promptly turned back. And you do make a new low into the end of the day. So not really pretty there. On the hourly, in terms of updating numbers and levels, what do we have? I think it's still notable to have this 224.25. Let me actually go back to the 5-minute chart. I know we're bouncing around a bit. But here's today's 5-minute range and where we broke down from. I mean, you tell me. Probably pretty important to still have this 224.25, right? That's the origin, scene of the crime. To the downside, we could just update our gap stops, not stops, gap levels. Let's make sure that we understand that this is the earnings gap low, ER low, let's say. Let's show that name on the right. That level is still important. We've not closed the gap all the way, but honestly, we could just make this yellow, settled out at a pretty critical level, right? That's going to be your previous lows of this balance range. So that makes sense. Gap there, and honestly, the levels to the downside remain as they were. There's no real update. This is thin structure. That's your neckline break. I'm not wishing for NVIDIA to get all the way back down there, but that's kind of it. You take out these lows, night, nice knowing you, back down through those rally spots. Topside reclaims, all levels make sense there. Let's jump on into this Apple. A little bit more of a test into that overhead gap. So all we do here is say, okay, nice to know ya at 319.25. That goes to a dim gray, or not dim, but just gray. And then we bring in a yellow gap level for the new high. That's it, simple. No need to overcomplicate this Apple here. There it is. This still makes sense to the bottom side. All set. Levels are all set there. Microsoft, we probably don't need the earnings gap anymore. This thing's just eons away. If Microsoft finds itself down here again, we'll certainly brighten it back up. But for now, this just kind of goes away. Let me also remind myself that this is G for gap. There we go. And we'll make this black. Good. So it fades off into the oblivion. I also want to update this just to say G for gap. All right, good. What other updates can we bring up here? Very, very grindy chart in the upward direction. Oh, goodness. Probably we'll leave that be for now. And then this is just going to be the only other level there that I would add around this 505.50. Of course, that's a dim gray dotted line. And yeah, we'll see where we go from there. Anything to the upside we need to brighten up. Let's go back to this. Now we got a pretty good bearing on those upper levels. That checks out to me. Okay, moving along. Amazon. We'll leave the earnings gap be for now. I like the break to the upside. This probably deserves a little bit of inversion of the levels. When I say inversion, what I mean is this. This goes like this because that's now a midpoint of the range. This goes like this because it's the highs of the range. And, right, so you could see that. If the market's going to pull back a little bit, which I would also even venture to bring this level down just a touch. I mean, we're splitting hairs here, but let's go by about 25 cents to the south side. It's these hourly inflections there. And, if you really wanted to, you could do this. This is more like an intraday trigger for potentially Monday up and over that 266.85. You just want to know that you're clearing out the 20 SMA and prior day high. Okay, so that checks out to me on Amazon. No real updates to levels beyond that. Google, wow, this chart is just a boatload of slop. Nice rally today, but I mean, this just really been struggling to accelerate out of the range. Pretty tough look on the Googler over here. Yeah, the more I look at the chart, the more I just kind of want to let it be. And the logic for that is just to remind myself that 347.25, it should have accelerated above that, it failed once. It should have accelerated above that, it failed twice. So if we're below that level, it's not really, Google's not really doing it here, so to speak. We could maybe update this to like, 65, just another 40 cents, give or take, right? Just to capture that lower high into the end of the day. It's still the high of day from here, close enough, lows, highs, right? So that's a decent capture there. Don't want to get level happy. You could put a line in here. I just don't want to trade Google at all inside the slop, so pass. Moving along to Broadcom. Nice rejection of the overhead gap. So what we'll do is remove that one. We'll keep this one on, but make it gray. And I think we let it be as that. The only other thing you could maybe do here is just kind of brighten this up. And I believe also, no, that is the correct number. So it's not just the overnight Marvel news level, it's actually the low of the range. So we don't need to label it anymore. I think the catalyst has come and gone. That's not the important part. Now it's the chart structure. And if you really wanted an additional level to short underneath for the head and shoulders neckline, you're talking about 366. All right, under 366, this thing goes kind of, I don't want to say night-night, but that's a pretty charming outcome if you have a left head and right shoulder. Let's jump on over to this metaverse. Any level updates over here? Just a whippy chart over the last little bit. So really the preference is probably, I almost hate to do it on this one, but we'll invert. We'll do this. Is that's the opening print. Let's just drop the opening print in. Can I get away with 590 flat? Yeah, it's close enough. 590 flat is the top of that range and the low of the range. This is the bar from the lawsuit, right? So just inverting some of that structure, focusing on what I believe to matter a little bit more. Let's go back to this daily. 600 is a really historic level from over here, but I think we could probably focus more on these upper wicks. So where's the true? 600's it. I mean, it's your left. I know we poked through it a little bit, but it's this rejection here. So I'm going to leave 600. I'm going to leave it as is. We could maybe update and brighten up one additional topside level, which we've got a couple, but this is technically a level here. And then you technically have a level here as well. Something that looks like that. All right. So we'll leave that be. I do think this chart looks kind of lower, though, from here. So just to say it. MU, Swiss cheese, it's resolving a little bit. Still a very, just choppy chart. Not really expecting a ton out of this particular name. Any level number and number updates? Oh, no. Not really. It's still a high. It's that 929 spot is still critical. It's acting like a magnet more than anything else. Notice how we just cling to it. We cling to it. So I'd like to see a move away from 929 to really establish like a new trend, be it up or down, right? At this point, it doesn't matter. Show me something that kind of breaks this range compression, and we'll go from there. So I'll leave this be on the MU. Let's go on over to a Tesla. Hourly chart levels here, levels. Yeah, it's still this 349.50. You could call it 350 if you like nice round numbers. That's fine. No level updates here. The levels are the levels and they're doing their thing. Great. JP Morgan, the levels are the levels and they're doing their thing. Probably inversion. That's the only thing I could see doing over here. We invert and we say you're now more important because you mark a major low. Good. And we say you're now more important because if we break out, it's a multi-day high that's getting taken. Makes sense to me. Next up, AMD, another noisy chart. Noisy. Probably weak though. Lower highs, flat lows. Gotta let it be. The levels are the levels. The midpoint's still working. So I will let this be on AMD. No real reason to get overly finicky and doctor up a bunch of the levels on that. Intel, we probably can fix up just a little bit. We do something like that, and we just mark out these highs, clear character change. If we're getting acceptance over 92.50, a weak chart for sure, looking for lower from here. I would like to see either rallies that fail this, or, I was really waiting for the 20 SMA up here. Look something like that, just a daily lower high, but, consolidation, continuation, let's go. What else? We got the downside gap. Probably don't want much more than that. And that's it for the core list of companies, which means it's time to run the scanner and see what we get in Scanland over here. We're going to start with the high beta stuff and jump into our scanner from there. Give that a moment to load. In the meantime, we'll take a sip of water. There's the load. We'll wait for liquid leader to load up as well. A lot of custom scripts that are working in the background here. Oh yeah, nice and slow. Thinkorswim's nice and slow. We got like what, 6 out of probably 200 plus names. Let's get that thing to load up. Slowly but surely it will go. I don't want to jump the gun and have this thing. Oh, it's totally just slow. Wow. All right, we'll give it a second. Heck, it's Friday at 6 o'clock, right? Thinkorswim deserves a little break here and there too. Almost there. Not. Almost there. I wonder if we could honestly, I don't know if this will speed it up. It technically should because we're removing a custom calculation, but let's remove that and say just focus on liquid leader. We don't, we're looking at chart structure. We don't need to know the percent up down for today's session. We'll let this continue to load. You could probably, bump forward on the video, by 10, 15 seconds or whatever. I think if you hit the L key on a keyboard, it'll bump you forward 15 seconds. Just trying to wait for these to load so we don't duplicate too much. Probably count to, I don't know, 8, 10, and 15 seconds, another 10 seconds, and if nothing changes, we'll just start going through. Another sip of coffee, well, not coffee, water, and we'll get going. It's too late for coffee. All right, here we go. AU, as it loads, of course. All right, now let's just click on the NANs. NAN just means that there's not 52 weeks worth of data, so we don't know whether or not we're close to a 52-week high or not. The Cerebrus looks awful. Terrible. Bottom of the range. Not interested. Let's buzz through it. Let's get the job done. Let's see what's here. SpaceX still looks constructive. I'm just going to make a note of that. Still looking constructive. Good. And we'll go forward to CRM. Not a bad day 2 follow through for an intraday trade. Take a look at this on the 5. You just kind of got your first pullback, and then it kind of did go higher for a bit. CRM, it needs a new setup, right? So I've got a separate list of software names. I'm not going to rewrite this and do the whole deal there. PanW earnings this upcoming week, so of course that's worth paying attention to after the report. CrowdStrike is already out. Nice flat top base here and an HVC at 228. So this is up there on the list. So CRWD, watching the flat top base. Ideally, this tightens up, right, and gives you some higher lows, volatility contracts, and then we go, or something of that nature. Needs VCP. All right, next up, ANET. Not really the look. The reason I'm not as convinced about this, yes, it's near the highs. Yes, it's kind of acting okay. This, to me, though, is a potential lower high coming into a rougher market condition. Maybe it's look below and fail like that on Monday or something of that nature. Look below and fail of today's low on Monday. Maybe, I'm probably going to pass on it personally. Net tried this one long today. Probably going to try it again on Monday if it works. If we're going to get something going on here. Net theme is stronger than ANET, right? Rather than Arista, I'd prefer some Cloudflare, cyber stuff. So net, what am I going to say? Back through 300? Question mark. HVC reclaim. And MA stack. Right, 20 SMA right there. 8 EMA is going to play a little bit of if we open higher, it'll open higher as well. The 8 EMA. Path needs a new setup. Probably not ready for early next week, but if it pulls back and gets constructive over 1677, looks good. Team, same thing on the software radar. MongoDB, same thing on the software radar. Twilio, not as compelled just because we do have the potential for a lower high, but you shape this up, you go back to the highs, you contract, and then it really goes. Maybe. So some really strong stuff in these software names. And this isn't even the software list. Just notice how all of these, right, have really strong liquid leaders ratings. That's because software is just so strong over the span of last week. Okta earnings certainly a contributor. Nice off of this. Okta is probably watchable, right, through the high volume close. I already have CrowdStrike and Net though. HPQ, nope. We don't want printers. No thanks. This is great. ANF, tight inside bars on retail jeans. Abercrombie and Fitch, huh? So tight inside bars watching 150.5. Let's go from here and keep moving. 10x Genomics, Elastic, NBIS. Sad story, this NBIS. I'd like to see it lower and then a 3-day bounce to get short. So not really active yet. Moderna looks good off of this little 8 EMA kiss right there. What else? Light, lower. The whole group is acting poorly over there. Palantir probably deserves a watch. Watching for daily higher setups. It's not ready yet, but inverted hammer, it could use a breather after going up 3 days in a row. CoreWeave looks like a short. AAOI looks like a short. Strategy looks like a short. AXTI looks like a short. Dell looks like a short. Oof. What else is going on here? SMCI looks like a short after a lower high. Now, ServiceNow really strong. Probably a mean reversion look there, but just notable relative strength today. Now, notable rel strength. GTH, there we go. What else is going on over here? Credo, probably a short, but wait for earnings. Teradyne, probably a short. I really wish it could have bounced a little bit more firmly. What else? Circle needs a new long setup, but not bad for stable coins. Ondas, no good for drones. BMNR, we could watch these things for higher low pullbacks. That's one thing I would keep in mind, higher low pullbacks. Just look at the amount of volume that's coming into them. So let's say BMNR, watching for HL pullback, big volume. Okay. So they're not ready yet, but they look like they could be ready. And one more time, just to say it, it's the amount of volume that came into this as it's rallying that, to me, seems like it might have a little bit of staying power. HPE kind of looks like that's come and gone for now. Workday, earnings, deal. You got to know your ins and outs there. FinTech's kind of taking a bit of a breather today. Fig Newton, yes. Fig, look below and fail of the 8 EMA range high, 27.75. And 8 EMA for longs. That's good. Big software base there on a weekly. What else? This Trump tasers Axon thing still looks, I mean, it's still tight, but that's not the close you wanted on today's session. Let's just make note of that. Axon, oops, not Azon, Axon. Still tight, but not a great close. Okay, HubSpot starting to break out. Good relative strength today. Hubs breaking out and closed over base. Let's keep moving. Rare earths, unfortunately, kind of came and went. They just didn't do anything. Maybe they come back, but for now, they don't look that great. I mean, it's a clear level, right? 1974 or 5 or whatever there, $20. It's a very clear level, but not a good close. Bearish engulfers. Yikes, rubric, ugly there. I'm going to write that down as just a note to self, but not that it's a trade or anything, but RBRK, notable violence and weakness versus peers. Okay. I mean, of course it's coming off the earnings report, but just not at all tame like it used to be. This is really tight, the CHTR. This is Charter Health, right? Let me just look this up in another tab real quick as we're making sure we're looking at the right thing. CHTR? Charter Communications, my apologies. Spectrum. Charter Communications cable operator selling internet. Okay, tight on the daily, right? You've got this thing kind of going on there like we were just talking about, but what does like a really zoomed out chart look like? I mean, the weekly is brutal. Why are we looking for a first flag on this thing? I don't think so. Not my favorite. It's tight, has relative strength today. Let's just put it on as a stretch. CHTR. Stretch, but tight chart that has horrible weekly. Horrible. Tight chart with poor weekly. Good. All right. Let's just say, eh. All right, there we go. ZS, nice inside bar. Unfortunately, earnings here. That would be a really great look. Inside day like that, through the inside day high, up and out, tight risk. ZS, great chart, mind, earnings. That looks like it's done for a while, that hyper liquid after the Trump pump. Tight chart on Gartner. It just trades like garbage. Doesn't trade smoothly. It doesn't have big linear moves. Guidewire still long this name. Long it from like 170, 170 or whatever it was. Very, very low. Webull could have a setup at 9. Bull. Do fintechs come back? Question mark. $9. LBAF. Look below and fail. This thing looks cooked for a while. This ASST, Strive, a lot of those crypto names look that way, right? I mean, they've made really impressive moves, but time to chill out a little bit. What else is in here that's interesting? I mean, the trouble about some of these names is they did give you 2-3 day bounces, but they didn't really, like, there was no setup there. Unless you knew you wanted to short flex or whatever, it's a little tough to get those things on the short side. The CLSK looks like it's topping in a big way. Go to a weekly chart. Daily chart. There we are. This is a failed run, in my opinion. You're back down underneath here. So I guess maybe the weekly is just kind of ranging, but it looks done, basically. It looks like it wants lower. I guess what I'm trying to say. Let's go over here. Let's take a look at some more of these things. Again, some decent 3 day bounces. If you knew you wanted to go out there and short Macam Technologies, then like congrats. Today was a good day for that. Simo, same thing. But if you looked at some of the more household semiconductor names, they didn't really have great short setups. Like, yeah, you wanted to look that way, but the setups weren't really there headed into Warsh, honestly. The Qs, honestly, were just the better setup. What else in here? New low on Sterling. Like, again, what are you going to short that in the hole down here? You want your 2-3 day bounce into a moving average. Like, get me here, ripping bounce, and then just sort of turn it around. Like, this is a good example. There's one, right? Tower Semi, like this was a candidate that I had the alert. I was in the videos a number of times, but like, show me the 2-3 day bounce into the 50 SMA. We'll short it there. It just kind of, it gapped and crapped on Thursday and then just lower today. Anything else toward the bottom of this list that we need to make note of? This would have been a good example. Great example, actually. This marathon. 3-day bounce, obviously this was a trade from the 21st. You would have needed to got involved, or I suppose you could have gotten involved as soon as Thursday, but it's a good example of a 3-day bounce and starting to turn away from that 50-day after making a new low. That's the key part, right? Probably have to put that in the database there. Hut, no thanks, no thanks, no thanks. Nope. A good example. That one probably was doable. CLS. I actually want to write those down on a sticky note. That way I can add them to the database. CLS. 3DBS. As well as, what was that one we just saw? Was it Mara? Yeah, Marathon. Mara. Okay. Celestia is clearly different than Marathon Global Holdings, but anyway, moving forward. Datadog looks terrible. Looks like a short, doesn't it? Lower high, rejecting the 50-day. D-Dog, short, question mark. Vertiv, break these lows, short, question mark. Cypher, break the lows probably. Reddit, gnarly, break the lows. Yeah, just not a great look out there in this market right now. ARM could have been a 3-day bounce short against this overhead supply. 1, kind of 2, 3 up. Problem is he didn't make a new low on this name. Hood, fintechs, not really there with Robinhood. Rocket Lab, nope. Rocket Lab, best example of a 3-day bounce right here into the 50-day. That's the cleanest one out there. This is a good example as well, but it's obviously more than 3 days. I think optics are lower. Corning, the whole gang. A-Lab, not a bad one. Didn't give you really a lot of cushion to be able to hold that overnight Thursday into Friday, so tough there. And not coming from a new low. App round-tripped it straight into the low of day. Lamb Research was looking decent, trying to hold up in here, no longer. Irene, tough on earnings. We don't make any money, and crypto's starting to pull back. Yikes. AMAT, ugly. Ugly Coherent. Ugly STX. Probably a good example of a multi-day bounce. 1, 2, 3, 50 SMA, opened right on it, and lower. Some of the problems with these, which are not picture perfect, is just because they're not coming from a lower low. So I will not add those ones to the database. The setup truly comes from a lower low. We've covered AMD, we've covered Intel, we've covered MU. Here's SanDisk. SanDisk had some notable relative strength today. Look below and fail off the 20-day was actually the trade of the day off of this 5-minute hammer. Look below and fail, take out the day high, stop day low. Nice knowing you. Right? So that was SanDisk. And maybe that even goes in a entry tactic sort of database. Oops, let's go back to a daily. Look below and fail of the 20 SMA. Daily high or low. Maybe. All right, moving forward to the $100 million scanner. Let's see what's going on with the 100 mil. Take another sip of water in the meantime. Keep hydrated here. We'll give that a second to think. Thinkorswim does ultimately like thinking and needs to think. All right, good to go. Pretty quick on those liquid leaders. All right, figure, look below and fail of 36. Yes, please. FIGR, everybody gets all bearish. Oh, I guess it's over. It was fun while it lasted. Whoop. Little whoopsie daisies underneath 36. IPO open could be its tight risk entry spot. Not saying it has to work, but if it does, that's definitely a place to be long from. Let's say LBAF, look below and fail. IPO open at 36. It's 36. Stablecoins have had some relative strength. Here's that FPS. Somebody tried to tell me that FPS broke out over this previous high. You tell me. Look at this little box right here that says H, and then it has a number in it, right? I hover my cursor, that says high, 4026, right? The setup only became active over here after we had multiple days, right? So this little poke right over, wherever you want to call it, the very next day, none of these bars took out that high. This right here, 40 flat. This bar right here, 4019. The true break would have been over 4026. Somebody tried to tell me that this broke out. I don't think so. Also, if you just go to a 5-minute chart, now I'm just going through it because, gotta, of course, prove that I'm right. I'm right, and that guy was wrong. No, it's all in good fun, but just going back over to it, really, that's a breakout? That's what a breakout looks like at 40.20? I don't think so. I sure as heck don't think so. Anyways, this is not a setup, therefore we can move forward. Chime, just a little bit too far, too fast, extended, still 7, well, almost 7, 6.5 ATRs from the 50-day. Frog could be interesting on a gap close. Let's keep an eye on that. Frog, gap fill reversal, question mark, for longs. Hinge Health, a little bit of a pullback on those biotechs today. DK was strong over the inside day bar for like a minute, and that was it. This thing needs to pull back. This is AEHR is going to be a great candidate after round tripping this move for a 3-day bounce short setup. So let's keep that on our radar. AEHR going to be a good 3DBS setup. Could look long off of extension in the meantime. That's an advanced trade, but say you gap down, something that goes like that to get you there, you could be long for that little segment. It has a crazy ATR, so you could do, I don't want to say a lot of damage, but you could do something here. If this wants to look below and fail 75.25 AEHR, let's actually write that in. In the meantime, would be a look, let's say LBAF of 75.25, mind counter trend. Good. All right, what else is going on here? I don't like this stuff because it's underneath the declining 200-day, so those are not extension trades over here. Same thing with this Kados, AVAV, terrible. Drones, right? Stuff's all bad, terrible. That's kind of a kill bar back through the moving averages underneath local lows. This Duolingo's not bad. Not bad. Hablas español, por favor? What else? Anything that's biotech, no thanks. Gold. LEU, what a blast from the past. I mean, a nice little base forming. I think there's better uranium names. That's going to be, of course, your CCJ. CCJ is, whoa, geez, what a bar today. Wow. I had not seen that. This could get it, like, I know, is it in this list? How is it not in this list? Oh, it's not in the 100 mil. How did CCJ not hit the big scan? Is it 5 ATR? I think it's because it's 5, right? Yeah, I got 5 ATR there. CCJ is not bad in here. Kind of missing some names by, cutting it off at 5. But you want the fastest and the most liquid, right? Otherwise, what are we doing? We're wasting our time. CCJ, 100. Big grandma number. LBAF, question mark? If uraniums are going to wake back up, we need to power these data centers somehow, right? That's not in here. So we go back to LEU, which got us, which means AMLX is next. That's a biotech. This EPAM keeps showing up. I forget what it is. What is EPAM? Let's type that one in. EPAM, IT services company that provides software engineering, product development, technology consulting to enterprise clients. Got it. Okay. I mean, not bad, but probably a pass for me. There's nothing new to do with it there. GitLab earnings. Comp, what was a picture-perfect chart, is now failing. CAI, biotech, life sciences, same thing, Gold names, a lot of these gold names, mining companies, coals, no thanks. Metals, no. Nope. These are not setups. Nope. Galaxy, nope. Futures trading will be unavailable from Saturday 2 to 6 a.m. Okay. Who's trading futures on a Saturday? I didn't read that wrong, right? That wasn't a Sunday? Lattice looks terrible. If that makes a new low, it'll turn into a 3-day bounce short. AEIS. Again, like some of these things kind of gave you a little bit of it. Tough. You would have needed to go into the day on Thursday saying, wow, I'm going to short some stuff, right? And I think on Thursday the look was, wow, NVIDIA saved the market. Hardware's acting okay. Software's really rocking. Let's kind of like maybe not get aggressively short, right? Which, in hindsight was the wrong idea. But that's the market for you. They don't make it easy. Anything else good down here at the bottom of the barrel? Scraping the bottom of the barrel here on these names. Bitdeer, short, never quite triggered the alert. The alert was there for the short, never quite triggered. Coors could be a 3-day bounce short. Coors Scientific. Fuel Cell, terrible, and that's it. Let's maybe just double check the high volume option scan. This should be a much smaller list here, and we can just buzz through it. I just want to make sure I'm not missing any of the big names that are optionable. These are the names that I want to be having as growth names, but the optionable names are always a good tour as well. We'll see a lot of overlap here with a lot of the stuff we've seen already. So I'll try to make it quick. We've seen all these names, Newmont, Gold. I'm just going to focus on, the names I know that are the biggest, most liquid, worthwhile trading names. Oracle. Do we want to buy Oracle on a little shakeout of the moving average at 147, 35? I mean, maybe. Is it trying to build a little weekly cup and handle? It could be. So let's say Oracle longs against the daily 8/20. Okay. We keep moving forward. Gold. Netflix has been waking up with the Spotify, right? These are subscription businesses. These things act well. NFLX, right? These things are acting kind of well off these lows. This is just robotic. This is a robotic bid to the upside on Netflix. Look at how linear, right? The channel on it is that's not natural human trading. That's a robot. Anyway, what else is going on here? Energy names, yeah, maybe ready for a bounce. Uber looking okay. No. PayPal got walloped on the deal evaporating, so we'll see what that does. It's not really a setup. Let's just keep buzzing through. Oof, PCG, ugly. Look at that bar. Terrible. We've seen a lot of this stuff. Sentinel had earnings in the rear view. I'd focus on some other stronger names in that cyberspace. Sony strong with the Take-Two stuff. C3AI, ooh, short 200. Not bad. What else? Anything else towards the bottom of this list? GameStop. Oh boy. Open Door, is this thing cracked yet? Yeah, it is. Terrible. Carnival Cruise Line's not looking good. Ford never got back over that little pivot spot. TLT? Yikes. Mickey D's, no. Trade Desk, nope. I'd go with App Lovin' before Trade Desk. Not that I really think either are compelling charts, but for what it's worth. This Walmart might have a counter trend move, especially if we're going to get a rotation out of technology and growth into value. Inside bar on Walmart, do you get something out of an equal low? Right? So, I'll write it down, but it's not going to be a top priority. Do we get out of the inside bar on a rotation to value? Question mark. Google, we've seen this stuff. We've seen. We didn't see Marvel, did we? Yeah, Marvel, tough on the earnings report. Gap down, through and closed, settled on the lower bound of the market maker move. So it was one of the last standing semiconductors that was looking okay. They had that Google announcement, right, and just kind of flubbed into the end of this week. Gap and go to the downside is not the look. What would be interesting over here is a multi-day bounce into a declining moving average. That would be shortable at some point in the future if this is now going to sort of be a failed move for the hardware side. All right, that is it. That is what we got through the scan in this afternoon's roundup. Thanks for spending a little bit of your time on the more casual side of the channels with me here looking at charts this afternoon. Hopefully you guys have a fantastic week ahead, not only a trading week, but enjoy your weekends as well. This should be coming out on a Friday night. And check in on the main channel for the normal analysis tomorrow, midday, mid-afternoon, or whatever, for the full rundown of what I'm seeing in terms of pathing ideas on the index products, of course, the core list of companies, and what all the supporting evidence seems to suggest. I'll probably pick out a couple of trade ideas from this list and include them at the end of that video as well. So with that being said, have yourself an awesome weekend. Have a green trading week ahead. And as always, I will see you in the next one.